The rain fell like punishment from the heavens. Cold. Unforgiving. It soaked the earth until even the stones seemed to bleed. The night carried no mercy, only the sound of chains dragging across the ancient ruins of what once was Rome's proud marketplace, a place where voices once rose in trade and laughter. Now, those same stones echoed with the cries of the broken. In the center of that darkness stumbled a girl. Barefoot. Bruised. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each one tearing through her chest like glass. The rain clung to her hair, plastering it to her face as she pressed herself against a crumbling pillar. Her wrists were raw, the iron cuffs still hot from the spell that bound her. The air smelled of rusted blood and smoke, a mix of sorrow and violence that made her throat tighten. Every sound was amplified, the guards' boots squelching through the mud, the guttural laughter of traders bartering over flesh and fur, the low, muffled whimpers of others like her. Wolves without names. Wolves without homes. Wolves stripped of their souls. Her name, no, she didn't deserve it anymore. That's what her father had told her. "You are no daughter of mine," he'd said as the sun set behind the Roman hills, his eyes cold as the silver blade he used to cut her bond from the pack. She had begged him. Pleaded until her voice cracked. But mercy was never a language her father spoke. Now, every drop of rain that touched her skin felt like his rejection seeping deeper, freezing her from the inside out. Lightning tore open the sky again, flashing across the ruins, revealing the crowd that filled the old arena below. The stands, once used for cheering gladiators, were now packed with howling, snarling figures. Wolves in human skin, bidding with gold and blood. Their torches flickered like false stars. And there, at the center, the auction platform, made of black stone, stood a man with a voice sharp enough to cut bone. "Next offering," he bellowed, gripping the chain of a trembling shifter. "Half-blood. Still strong enough to fight, if you train her right." The crowd roared. Coins clanged. And she pressed her back harder against the pillar, trembling. That could have been her. That should have been her. It was her, only hours ago. She remembered standing on that stage, her wrists pulled high above her head, her knees giving way beneath her weight. The crowd chanting. The smell of blood dripping from somewhere close. She remembered the man who placed his bid, a rival alpha, known for breaking spirits and turning wolves into weapons. He had smiled when he saw her. Not with kindness. With hunger. Her breath hitched now as she caught sight of him through the fog, down below, standing tall and cruel, his cloak brushing the wet ground as he watched the auction continue. He had paid for her like she was nothing. A possession. A trophy of power. But she wasn't in his cage anymore. She had escaped, barely. The memory burned bright, the guard's throat snapping beneath her chained wrists, the panic, the running, the sound of pursuit closing in. Her body still ached from it. Thunder rolled again, like the sky itself pitied her. She crouched low, pressing a trembling hand to the ground. It was cold and uneven beneath her fingers, the ancient stone slick with centuries of forgotten blood. She looked down at her reflection in a puddle, mud, tears, and defiance. Her once blue eyes were rimmed with silver, the faint glow betraying what she truly was. She quickly covered her face with her mud-streaked hand, whispering to the silence, "Don't see me. Please, not again." But the curse inside her pulsed, a dull ache under her ribs. Her wolf stirred, restless. Angry. Caged. And yet, no matter how she begged it, the beast remained silent. The curse her father placed on her wasn't one that broke easily. He had taken her hell. A sound echoed nearby, the crack of a whip. Then a scream. The auctioneer's voice rose over it. "Disobedient mutt. Next time, we take the tongue." Her stomach twisted. She knew that pain too well. She had felt that whip on her own back. The scars still marked her skin, a roadmap of betrayal. Another flash of lightning lit the sky, and for a brief moment, she saw her father's face again, the way he looked at her the day he sold her. Not with guilt. Not even anger. Just cold calculation. Like trading her away was nothing more than business. The rival alpha had handed him a scroll sealed with blood. Her father had nodded once. And that was it. Her fate was sealed. Now, standing in the ruins of that same market, she could still hear the echo of the crowd chanting her price. Her name was gone, her wolf silenced, her freedom stolen. But her heart still fought. The rain grew heavier, pounding against her shoulders, washing away the dirt but not the memory. From beyond the pillars, the guards' voices grew louder. Check the northern ruins. She's hurt, she can't have gone far. Her pulse spiked. She forced her breathing to slow, pressing herself deeper into the shadows. Her body shivered uncontrollably. Every inch of her was begging to run, but she couldn't. Not yet. One wrong move and she'd be dragged back to chains, back to darkness. Her hand brushed against the broken stones, and something sharp sliced her palm. She hissed quietly, pressing it to her chest to stop the bleeding. The scent of her blood, wolf blood, hit the air. The guards froze. She saw it in their eyes through the flicker of torchlight, recognition. Hunger. There, one shouted. She bolted. Mud splashed beneath her feet as she ran, heart hammering against her ribs. Her legs screamed in protest, the iron cuffs still heavy around her ankles. Every breath burned her lungs. The ruins twisted and turned, arches collapsing, walls leaning as if trying to block her path. Behind her, the guard's footsteps thundered closer. She turned a corner too fast, stumbled, fell. The ground met her hard, knocking the air from her chest. She gasped, scrambling to rise, her fingers slipping on wet stone. A hand caught her hair, yanking her back. She screamed, a sound that didn't sound human. Found you, the guard sneered, dragging her up by the chain. His breath smelled of stale ale and cruelty. Thought you could run, huh? The alpha's gonna love breaking you all over again. She struggled, clawing, kicking. Desperation made her wild. The guard laughed, until the wind changed. The air shifted. The rain paused for half a heartbeat, as though the sky itself held its breath. Then came the sound, low, guttural, inhuman. A growl that rolled through the ruins like thunder made flesh. The guard froze. His grip loosened just slightly. She felt it too, the weight in the air, heavy, primal. Her heart stuttered. Something ancient had entered the marketplace. Something powerful. The torches flickered violently, one by one. The guards began shouting, searching the shadows. And then, nothing. Silence. The guard holding her turned in panic. Who's there? Show yourself. Only the rain answered. But she saw him first. A figure emerging through the storm. Cloaked. Tall. Moving with the kind of authority that didn't need to announce itself. His presence bent the air around him, quieting everything it touched. Lightning flashed behind him, framing his silhouette in silver. For a moment, she forgot to breathe. The guard raised his whip, snarling. You don't scare me, whoever you are. The stranger moved before the words even finished. One heartbeat, the guard stood. The next, he was on the ground, throat exposed, eyes wide in disbelief. The man didn't even look at the fallen body. He simply raised his gaze, and those eyes, glowing gold beneath the hood, met hers. Something inside her shifted. Recognition? No. Something deeper. A memory she didn't know she had. The air crackled between them. He took a step closer, the rain sliding off his shoulders like it feared to touch him. His voice was low, rough, and cold as iron. You shouldn't be here. She stumbled back, trembling. Who are you? He tilted his head slightly, studying her as though seeing through her skin. You don't remember me, do you? Her throat tightened. Should I? His gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. Maybe not. Not yet. Behind him, lightning flashed again, and for a split second, the world seemed to hold still. The chains around her wrists trembled. The metal heated, not from pain, but something alive, reacting to him. And then she heard it. Her wolf. Weak, distant, but calling. Her breath hitched. For the first time in years, the silence inside her wasn't empty. The stranger's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing it. "Good," he murmured. "She still answers." "Who are you?" she asked again, voice breaking. He took another step closer. "Someone who was there when your father made the deal." Her heart stopped. The rain, the chains, the fear, it all blurred into one crushing weight. Because she realized something terrifying. This man, this alpha, had known. He had seen it all. And still, he was here. She should have run. But her feet wouldn't move. And deep inside her chest, something whispered, a voice not her own, older than her pain. "He is the storm that breaks the curse." For the first time in years, she felt something that almost hurt more than fear. Hope. Thunder rolled again, echoing through the ruins like a promise yet to be kept. If your heart beats for stories that burn with love, loss, and destiny, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where every tale howls beneath the moonlight. The howl cut through the storm like a blade through breath. It wasn't a sound born of pain or rage, it was authority. Ancient, commanding, undeniable. Every wolf in the marketplace stilled. Every breath hung frozen in the air. Even the torches seemed to flinch, their flames shrinking as though the wind itself bowed in reverence. The guards exchanged uneasy glances, their hands tightening on their weapons. The auctioneer stopped mid-shout, his words dying against the sudden hush. The crowd that had once chanted for blood now trembled in confusion. Through the dense fog and rain, a shadow moved. Slow. Certain. Each step a warning. Each movement a claim. The scent hit first. Wild pine, smoke, and something electric that tasted of lightning and danger. Then came the sight of him. He emerged from the mist like the storm had shaped him, tall, broad, armored in black that glimmered faintly beneath the rain. The hood concealed most of his face, but the eyes, those eyes, cut through the darkness. Gold. Alive. Burning. They found her instantly, as if they had been searching for no one else. The chains around her wrists trembled again, humming with a strange, unseen energy. It wasn't fear that made them shake, it was recognition. Something in her blood reacted to him, something buried deep beneath years of silence. The crowd murmured now, voices rising like ripples in water. "The Alpha King," someone whispered. "He hasn't been seen in years," another muttered. "What's he doing here?" But he paid them no attention. His gaze never left her. She pressed her back against the stone pillar, her pulse hammering. Every instinct screamed to run, but her legs refused. The air around him felt alive, charged, humming with power that pressed against her chest, stealing her breath. The auctioneer swallowed hard, forcing bravado into his tone. "Your Majesty, this is a private trade. You've no claim here." The Alpha King's voice cut through the storm like steel. "She's not your property. She belongs to no one." The silence that followed was suffocating. The crowd erupted in shouts and confusion. Coins clattered to the ground, and several guards raised their weapons, unsure if they should attack or kneel. The storm responded with a violent gust, scattering rain like shards of glass. Her heart thudded so loudly she thought it might betray her hiding place. Her father had whispered stories of this man, the Alpha King, the one who had ended wars with a single roar. The one whose bloodline carried the ancient flame. The one even her father feared. But what was he doing here? She took a small step back, her heel hitting broken stone. The sound was faint, but his head turned slightly, as if he could hear the beat of her heart. His gaze locked on her again, sharper this time, more deliberate. She felt it, a pull, magnetic and raw, somewhere between recognition and warning. It wasn't attraction. It was something older, wilder, like their souls had brushed once before time remembered. Her voice barely rose above the rain. How, do you know my name? He stopped. The crowd's noise faded into the distance. For a long moment, he said nothing, only studied her, like a man staring at a memory he wished he could forget. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady, but beneath it lay something fractured. Because, little wolf, I was there when your father made the deal. The words hit her harder than the rain ever could. Her breath stuttered, her mind blank. The world seemed to tilt. He had been there. He had seen. He had watched as her father sold her. Her throat tightened, tears stinging her eyes though she didn't let them fall. Then you knew. You knew what he did to me. The Alpha King's jaw tensed. He didn't look away. I knew what he intended. I didn't know what he'd do after. Liar, she whispered. It wasn't anger, it was heartbreak sharpened into disbelief. You stood there. You let him sell me like a thing. His silence was an answer she didn't want. He took another step closer, the fog swirling around his boots. She flinched, pressing herself against the pillar. Every instinct told her to stay away, yet every part of her wanted to understand. I tried to stop it, he said, quieter now. But your father bound the council with old law. The moment your blood touched his mark, the pact was sealed. No Alpha could interfere. The memory flickered through her, the blade, the blood, her father's hand forcing her palm against the parchment. The pain. The betrayal. The sound of her own name being stripped from her. She shivered, the rain unable to wash the memory away. You could have done something. He looked at her for a long time before answering. And what would you have had me do, little wolf? Tear down every pack law written in blood before either of us was born? Start a war you weren't ready to survive? His words were harsh, but beneath them, there was sorrow. Not for what he'd done, but for what he hadn't. She wanted to hate him. It would have been easier. But standing there, seeing the weight behind his golden eyes, she realized hate wasn't what she felt. It was recognition. Something inside her whispered, he's not your enemy. The storm thickened, lightning spilling across the sky like veins of fire. The crowd began to stir again. The rival Alpha stepped forward, flanked by his guards, fury twisting his face. His voice boomed across the arena. You can't take what's mine. The Alpha King turned slowly, his hood slipping back just enough to reveal the sharp line of his jaw, the wet strands of dark hair clinging to his forehead. Yours? The single word dripped with disdain. You think you own what was never meant to be yours. The rival Alpha sneered. You think your title gives you power here? This is my ground. My market. And she, he pointed toward her, was bought with blood. The Alpha King's power shifted, filling the air like a physical force. The torches bent away from him, the ground trembling beneath his boots. Then your blood will repay it. The rival Alpha lunged forward, but before his men could react, a wave of energy rippled outward, a soundless, invisible storm that sent them staggering back. The chains that hung from the auction pillars rattled violently, ringing like bells of warning. She stumbled back, eyes wide, as her cuffs began to glow faintly again. The mark of her curse burned against her skin, but beneath it, something new stirred, a spark she hadn't felt in years. The Alpha King's gaze flicked toward her, and for a brief moment, his eyes softened. It's reacting to me, he murmured, almost to himself. What is? She asked, voice trembling. Your bond, he said. It never died. Before she could respond, the rival Alpha roared, charging again, shifting mid-stride. His body warped, bones cracking, fur sprouting in a grotesque blur of motion. The wolf that emerged was massive, black as ash, eyes burning red. But the Alpha King didn't move. He stood still, waiting. When the beast lunged, he caught it by the throat. The sound of impact echoed through the ruins, the two forces colliding with a shock that made the earth tremble. The crowd screamed, scattering for cover as the storm erupted overhead. She could barely see through the rain, only flashes of claws, teeth, and gold light. The Alpha King's power rolled through the air in waves, wild and ancient. He wasn't just fighting, he was unleashing. The rival Alpha fell to the ground, gasping, shifting back into human form. Blood stained the rain-soaked dirt. The Alpha King loomed over him, chest heaving. "Take your men," he growled, voice low and final. "And remember this night. The age of selling wolves ends now." The rival Alpha spat blood, hatred burning in his eyes. "This isn't over." "No," the king said quietly. "It never is." The rival Alpha limped away, his men dragging him into the shadows. One by one, the torches guttered out until only the rain remained. Silence. The Alpha King turned back to her. The gold in his eyes dimmed slightly, replaced by something unreadable. She was trembling, soaked, and barefoot, her breath still uneven. When he stepped closer, she didn't back away this time. He reached out slowly, fingers brushing the broken iron at her wrist. "These won't hold anymore," he said. His voice wasn't soft, but it wasn't cruel either. When the cuff fell away, she winced. The skin beneath was raw, red, scarred. His hand hovered there for a moment, not touching, as if afraid to cause more harm. Her eyes lifted to his. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated, the rain streaking down his face. "Because I should have done it a long time ago." Something in his voice cracked, the sound of regret from a man who carried too many ghosts. She didn't know what to say. The air between them was heavy, not with fear now, but with something she didn't yet understand. Thunder rolled again, softer this time, as if the storm itself was catching its breath. He stepped back, his expression unreadable. "You can come with me, or stay here and wait for the next buyer. The choice is yours." She looked around, the ruins, the cages, the broken souls still chained in the shadows. The market that smelled of blood and endings. Then she looked at him. Every instinct she had ever trusted told her he was dangerous. But another voice, deep inside her chest, whispered something else. "He's danger that could save you." She took a step forward. The chains at her feet clattered as they fell away. His eyes followed her movement, and for the first time a faint spark, almost like relief, crossed his face. Without another word, he turned and walked into the storm. She followed. And for the first time in years, she wasn't running from something. She was walking toward it. Toward him. Toward whatever waited beyond the rain. The mist thickened as they crossed into the ruins, wrapping the world in silence. Every breath they took seemed to echo through time itself. Moss clung to the stones like memory, damp and ancient. The Alpha King walked ahead, his cloak brushing the wet ground, every step measured and certain. She followed close, her bare feet leaving faint impressions in the earth that glowed faintly under moonlight, as though the ground itself remembered her presence. The path wound between towering columns, their surfaces carved with stories long forgotten. Wolves in battle. Wolves kneeling before a woman crowned in silver light. Her gaze lingered on one carving, a wolf half-shifted, eyes lifted to the sky, as if begging the moon for forgiveness. The image made her chest ache. "What is this place?" she whispered. "The Temple of Eloria," he said softly, voice low but steady. "Built before pacts divided, before power turned to war. The old ones believed the moon herself walked among us once. They called her the Celestial Queen." Her steps slowed. "And these carvings?" "They tell her story," he said. "And the story of those born from her flame." Lightning flickered across the clouds, illuminating the cracked walls. She could almost see movement in the carvings, shadows twisting as though the wolves bowed in her direction. The air hummed faintly, alive with whispers. Her pulse quickened. "Do you hear that?" He stopped, tilting his head. Then she heard it too, a soft chorus, not quite words, not quite sound. 1,000 voices carried on the wind, faint as breath, ancient as bone. They spoke in fragments, but she could feel their meaning beneath the syllables. The one with the silver flame. The bound shall break. The forgotten shall rise. Her throat tightened. "They're calling me." He turned to her, eyes burning gold through the mist. They're remembering you. A tremor moved through her as they stepped deeper into the ruins. The mist grew brighter near the center, where a fallen dome opened to the sky. There stood an altar, draped in vines, carved from marble streaked with moonstone. Beneath the ivy, faint sigils pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She reached out before she could stop herself. The stone was cool under her palm, almost gentle. The moment her skin met the surface, the world shifted. The whispers vanished. The ground seemed to tilt. She gasped as light flared beneath her hand, then her vision blurred, replaced by something that wasn't the present at all. A woman stood before her, radiant and terrible, her hair a crown of fire-white strands, her eyes molten silver. Wolves knelt around her, heads bowed. She held a child in her arms, wrapped in cloth embroidered with the same sigils that now glowed beneath her own fingers. When the chains fall, the woman's voice echoed, rich and sorrowful, the flame shall rise again. And the one born beneath the dying moon shall unmake the old world and forge it new. The vision splintered. She gasped, stumbling backward. The Alpha King caught her before she hit the ground. His hands gripped her shoulders firmly, grounding her. Her chest heaved, eyes wide. I saw her, she whispered. The Queen. She was holding me. He stared at her, disbelief flickering into something else, reverence, maybe even fear. The prophecy, he murmured. It speaks of you. She shook her head, voice trembling. No. No, it can't. I'm not her. I'm not anything like her. He didn't argue. He only looked at her, the silence between them alive with something that felt like inevitability. Your mark, he said quietly. It's the same as the one carved into these stones. Look. She followed his gaze. The pillars surrounding the altar glowed faintly now, the carvings shifting under the silver light. Wolves bowing before a figure crowned in moonfire, a woman whose likeness was unmistakable. The same curve of the jaw. The same mark over the heart. Her breath caught. That can't be me. It is, he said. You carry her flame. The light pulsed stronger beneath her skin, climbing her throat, flickering along her veins like rivers of molten silver. Panic clawed at her. Make it stop, she whispered, clutching her chest. It's too much. He caught her hand, pressing it over his heart. Breathe with me. His heartbeat thundered beneath her palm, steady and powerful. She followed its rhythm, gasping as the light steadied, dimming to a faint shimmer. The storm above them softened to drizzle again. The mist seemed to settle, listening. What does it mean? She asked. It means your blood remembers what your mind has forgotten, he said. The silver flame isn't a curse. It's a legacy. Her eyes lifted to his. Then why did my father fear it? Because legacy isn't meant to be controlled, he said simply. And men fear what won't kneel. She looked around them. The carvings still glowed faintly, light tracing through every line as though the temple itself had come alive. You think this was all meant to happen? He hesitated, then nodded once. The prophecy said when the chains of the cursed one broke, the flame would awaken again. That flame was never meant to serve the old alphas or the councils. It was meant to burn them down. Her gaze fell to the altar again. Then I'm a weapon. He stepped closer, the air between them crackling faintly. No. You're the balance they lost. She shook her head. You sound like one of the seers. I've met them, he said. And they all feared what comes next. Lightning split the sky again, and for a moment, she saw their reflections in the marble floor, his form sharp, controlled, and hers wreathed in faint silver glow. Two opposites bound by something that neither could undo. Her voice lowered. If I am what they say, if I was born to end what they built, then why save me? Because you're not meant to end it alone, he said. Something inside her shifted, like the click of a lock undone. She looked up at him, and the world seemed quieter somehow. The rain slowed. The mist parted slightly around them. He touched the edge of her jaw, his fingers cold and deliberate. You think this is all curse and prophecy, he said, but maybe it's just the universe remembering what it forgot. Her heart stuttered under the weight of his words. And what did it forget? That power and mercy can live in the same body, he said. That love can be both destruction and salvation. Her throat tightened. She wanted to pull away, to retreat behind her walls again, but his gaze held her there. Not as a prisoner, but as something seen. The altar flared again, brighter this time. She turned toward it, and her tears, unnoticed until now, fell onto the stone. The moment the first drop hit, the light exploded upward, racing through the temple like wildfire. The pillars burned silver. The carvings rippled, shifting to reveal wolves kneeling not before the queen, but before her. The air roared, filled with wind and whispers and the rush of unseen wings. The Alpha King shielded her with his body, but his eyes never left hers. The light painted his face in molten hues, and for the first time, she saw or replaced the unshakable calm he always carried. When the blaze finally dimmed, the temple was transformed. Every wall glowed with faint moonlight, the sigils reawakened after centuries of silence. He looked at her, voice barely a whisper. You are the heir they feared. She stood trembling, the glow fading from her veins but not from her eyes. Then what happens now? He studied her for a long moment, then said quietly, now, they'll come for you. Her pulse quickened. Who? The old bloodlines. The ones who built their power on the queen's death. They'll feel the awakening. They'll know the flame lives again. She looked at her hands, at the faint shimmer that still lingered beneath the skin. Then let them come. The words surprised even her, steady, quiet, but unyielding. He watched her, something unreadable flickering in his gaze. You sound like her. The queen? No, he said. You sound like yourself. She almost smiled then, almost, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavy on her chest. The wind outside picked up again, carrying the faint, distant call of wolves. It wasn't her imagination this time. The sound grew louder, closer. The Alpha King's head snapped toward the open archway. His eyes narrowed. They've already felt it. She stepped beside him, fear and fire warring within her. Then let them see what they tried to bury. He looked down at her, and for the first time, there was pride in his voice. Then stand with me, little wolf. Because prophecy or not, the war begins tonight. And as the storm reclaimed the sky, the moon broke free one last time, its light falling across her like a crown of silver flame, sealing the truth neither could deny. Rain turned to ash. The storm had followed them through the night, but here, on the open plain before the ruins, it seemed to bend its fury toward a single truth: nothing would ever be the same again. The scent of blood came first. Old blood. Familiar. Then came the voices, men and wolves intertwined, chanting her name like a curse. She felt it before she saw them. Dozens of them, maybe more. Eyes glowing amber and red, blades drawn, fangs gleaming under the fractured moon. They moved like a tide, enclosing her and the Alpha King within a ring of fire and hate. The rival Alpha stood at the edge of that circle, a mountain of muscle and rage. His coat shimmered black even in human form, his smile stretching too wide, too cruel. Did you really think you could take what's mine? His voice slithered through the air. Her blood bought my peace. Her suffering bought my throne. The Alpha King didn't move. He simply exhaled, slow, measured, dangerous. His eyes glowed gold beneath the hood, catching the faint flicker of lightning overhead. Then you misunderstand, he said softly. She was never yours to claim. The rival Alpha's laughter tore through the storm. Then let the moon decide, old king. And then the world broke open. Claws met steel. Lightning carved the sky. Wolves lunged, transforming mid-stride, bodies twisting and bones snapping in a violent ballet of dominance. The ruins of Rome, those once silent pillars of empire, echoed again with war cries, howls, and the splintering of stone. She couldn't breathe. couldn't move. Every sound stabbed her chest like a reminder, chains clinking, men screaming, wolves dying. Her heartbeat was chaos. Her wolf stirred but stayed buried, silent beneath the weight of her father's curse. The Alpha King fought like something born of fire and legend. His movements were too precise, too brutal, his claws flashing in arcs of gold and red. Each strike was a promise kept, each growl a warning to the gods themselves. But there were too many. They came in waves, howling her name, calling her traitor's daughter, the cursed child of the eclipse. She stumbled backward, her body trembling as if it remembered every lash, every shackle, every moment of helplessness. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred. She could see him, fighting for her, bleeding for her, but all she could think was, I can't. I can't lose him too. Her knees hit the ground. Her palms pressed against the wet earth. She whispered to the part of her that used to be wild, free, fearless. Please, come back. Nothing. Her wolf was gone. A flash of claws, one of the rival warriors charged toward her. She froze. The sound of her heartbeat drowned the world. Then, his voice. Run. The Alpha King's roar shattered the air, shaking the very bones of the ruins. But she didn't run. She couldn't. Something deep inside her cracked open, spilling every ounce of fear, pain, and longing she'd buried. And then it happened. The ground beneath her pulsed, silver light crawling up her skin, tracing the veins beneath her flesh, burning through the collar at her throat. The chains she once wore, the memory of them, snapped in an invisible storm of flame. Her scream wasn't human. It was ancient. It was power reclaiming its name. A shockwave burst outward from her chest, a sphere of molten moonlight tearing through the battlefield. Warriors were thrown back like leaves in a storm. Stone shattered. Torches extinguished. The air itself trembled. When the light faded, silence followed. Wolves lay scattered across the ruins, alive but trembling. Their eyes, once filled with hatred, now reflected something else entirely. Fear. Reverence. Awe. She was still on her knees, her body glowing faintly, steam rising from her skin. Her breathing was ragged, her hands shaking. The Alpha King stood a few paces away, his chest heaving, blood painting his jaw and armor. He looked at her as if he were staring at a miracle that could destroy him. Her voice was barely a whisper. This is why they chained me. He took a step forward, slow, deliberate. His gaze softened, but his power still radiated like a storm kept barely in check. No, he said. This is why they feared you. She met his eyes then, tears streaking through the ash on her face. You don't understand. Every time it wakes, someone dies. He stopped before her, close enough for her to feel the heat of his skin even through the rain. His voice dropped lower. Then maybe it's time it killed the right people. She flinched, not from the words, but from the conviction behind them. He meant it. Every syllable. And yet, beneath that iron resolve, she could hear something else, ache, guilt, something unspoken that trembled between them. The rival Alpha stirred, growling low as he dragged himself upright. His eyes glowed with fury. You can't save her, he spat. You can't fight destiny. The Alpha King turned his head, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Watch me. With a single motion, he shifted. Bones cracked, muscles expanded, gold fur bursting through torn fabric. His wolf form was immense, larger than any she'd ever seen, ancient power incarnate. The rival Alpha roared and shifted too, black against gold, light against shadow. Their collision was apocalyptic. The earth split. Thunder screamed. Blood turned to steam. She watched in frozen horror and awe as gods in wolfskin battled for her fate. Every blow echoed through her chest. Every howl felt carved from her own soul. And then she realized something that hollowed her breath. The flame inside her wasn't just power. It was connection. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Every strike he landed burned through her veins as if they shared one pulse, one destiny. She didn't know how or why, only that it was real. And it terrified her. When the fight ended, it was sudden and brutal. The rival alpha fell, broken, bleeding, his snarl fading into silence. The king stood over him, panting, his fur drenched in crimson and rain. He didn't finish him. He simply whispered something she couldn't hear and stepped back. The rival alpha crawled away, defeated but alive. For now. When the king turned toward her again, he was human. His skin glistened with rain and blood, his breath heavy, his eyes burning gold and wild. He approached slowly, like she was something fragile but untamed. She tried to speak but her throat felt tight. "You should have let me go." He shook his head. "I told you before. You belong to no one." She looked at him, pain shadowing her expression. "And yet you keep saving me." He smiled, faintly, bitterly. "Maybe because I need to believe there's still something worth saving." The rain eased. The wind quieted. The ruins glowed faintly under the broken moon. She stood, her body weak but alive, her power humming quietly beneath her skin. The world had changed, and deep down, she knew the war had only begun. But as she met his gaze, half man, half myth, something inside her whispered a truth she wasn't ready to admit. Maybe she wasn't meant to run from her curse. Maybe she was meant to become it. And for the first time since her father sold her into chains, she didn't feel broken. She felt awake. The cavern breathed around them, ancient, damp, whispering with the ghosts of forgotten wars. The air was thick with earth and smoke, the faint scent of blood still clinging to the edges of her torn sleeve. Outside, the rain had faded, leaving behind a silence so heavy it pressed against the ribs. A single fire flickered between them, its light trembling against the stone walls, catching fragments of their faces, the glint of his eyes, the cut on her cheek, the quiet tremor of her hands as she tried to forget the screams above. He sat across from her, stripped of armor, his shirt half torn, skin streaked with dirt and blood. Every breath he took was deliberate, controlled, like he was holding something back. She could hear the faint tremor in his exhale as he reached for her arm. "Let me see," he said quietly. She hesitated, but he didn't wait for her permission. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, as he cleaned the cut along her wrist. She flinched when his thumb brushed her pulse, too intimate, too careful for a man who killed without blinking. "Why?" she whispered. "Why help me? You barely know me." His jaw flexed. The fire snapped. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then his voice came, low and rough. "Because I know what it means to be sold." Her chest tightened. The words hung there, raw and unexpected. He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the fire, the shadows shifting over his face as if they remembered the same pain. "When I was younger, before I became king, I was property. A gladiator in chains. The Senate wolves made us fight beneath the moonlight, called it entertainment. They fed us blood and promises, and we killed to survive." The silence that followed was sharp. She watched him, her anger softening, something else stirring in its place. He wasn't just a savior. He was a man carved from loss. Every scar on his skin told a story of survival, every quiet word carried the weight of ghosts. Her voice trembled. "Did you ever stop fighting?" He met her eyes for the first time. "No. I just learned who deserved the fight." The fire crackled between them, tiny embers drifting upward like dying stars. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. There was something in his gaze that pulled at her, the kind of stillness that made the world fade, the kind of danger that felt safe. Her body ached, but her heart raced faster than it should. The air between them grew dense, humming with the unspoken truth neither dared name. "Your wounds," he murmured, breaking the silence. "They'll scar if you don't rest." She gave a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Scars don't scare me." "They should," he replied softly. "Because they remember." He looked away then, and she found herself studying him. The shape of his shoulders. The faint tremor in his fingers. The way his breath caught when she moved. There was a fragility in his strength, a quiet sorrow that mirrored her own. For the first time in years, she felt seen. The fire dimmed. Shadows lengthened. Somewhere above them, the moonlight broke through a crack in the stone ceiling, falling across her face like a soft touch. She turned to him. "If my wolf returns," she began, voice barely audible. "And she doesn't trust you, will you still stay?" His gaze met hers, steady, unguarded. "I'll stay until she sees what I see." Her heart stuttered. She wanted to ask what he saw, but she already knew. Or maybe she was too afraid to know. Their eyes lingered, too long, too deep. Every heartbeat seemed louder in the space between them. The world felt smaller, the fire warmer, the silence louder. He moved closer. Slowly. Hesitantly. The scent of him, smoke, iron, rain, filled her lungs. She didn't retreat. Couldn't. Every nerve in her body screamed to run, yet her pulse betrayed her, pulling her closer. His hand brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, the roughness of his fingers grazing her skin. She froze, breath catching. He looked at her like a man who'd forgotten what gentleness was. And she looked at him like she wanted to remember it. The air hummed, tense, fragile, alive. The fire popped, breaking the moment, but neither of them moved. "I don't know how to trust anymore," she whispered. "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm asking you to stay alive long enough to decide." Something inside her broke then, quietly, like a thread snapping in the dark. She didn't realize she was crying until he reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek. His thumb lingered there, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to hide it," he murmured. "I'm not hiding." "Yes, you are. I can hear it in your heartbeat." Her lips parted, a shaky breath escaping. "You listen to my heartbeat?" He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "It's louder than your words." The fire cast him in gold, and for a moment, he looked almost human, no crown, no armor, no power. Just a man who had lost too much and still found a reason to reach out. Her fingers brushed his wrist before she could stop herself. His pulse was fast, matching hers. They stayed like that, unmoving, caught in a fragile spell neither wanted to break. Then came the sound, distant, low, growing louder. A horn. Her head snapped up. His hand dropped from her face. The warmth between them vanished, replaced by cold dread. He stood immediately, his instincts flaring. "They've found us." Her breath hitched. "How?" "I thought." "Doesn't matter." He grabbed his sword, his movements precise, controlled, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the flicker of fear he didn't want her to notice. She rose to her feet, her body still trembling from exhaustion. The moonlight carved a path across the cavern floor, landing on her like a silent command. "Can you shift yet?" he asked, his voice clipped. She shook her head. "Not without her." He paused. "Then stay behind me." She hated the words. Hated how small they made her feel. But before she could argue, another sound echoed, a chorus of footsteps above, the scrape of steel on stone. He turned to her, eyes fierce. "If I tell you to run this time, you do it. Promise me." She didn't answer. "Promise me, little wolf." Her throat tightened. "And if I don't?" His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "Then I'll have to find you again." He looked at her one last time, one heartbeat too long, and then moved toward the mouth of the cavern, blade drawn, shoulders squared against the storm returning outside. She stood frozen in the flickering light, torn between the fear she knew and the trust she didn't understand. Above them, the horn sounded again, closer, sharper, echoing off the walls like the call of fate itself. And in that moment, surrounded by shadows and firelight, she finally understood what terrified her most. It wasn't death. It was the thought of losing him before she ever learned how to let him in. The night fell heavy again, as if the world itself had decided to mourn. The echo of the horn had faded, replaced by the sound of boots crunching against the wet earth. The scent of iron and damp moss filled the air, thick enough to choke on. When they emerged from the cavern, they didn't realize how close the enemy already was, until it was too late. They were surrounded. Dozens of warriors encircled them, torches flickering in the storm. Faces she once knew stared back at her, men and women from her own pack. Her father's wolves. The ones who had cheered when she was sold. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. His stance was unyielding, shoulders squared, but she could see the flicker of fury behind his eyes. The leader of the pack stepped forward, a scar running from his temple to his jaw. "Bring them," he ordered. They were dragged through the forest and into the amphitheater, once a proud Roman ruin, now twisted into a place of judgment. The scent of old stone and burnt offerings lingered. Torches cast long, trembling shadows across the cracked marble floor. At the center stood her father. His hair had grayed, his face hardened, his eyes colder than she remembered. The air shifted when he turned to face her. It wasn't the look of a father, it was the stare of an executioner. "You dare return," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, of betrayal, of bloodlines tainted by shame. "You were born from sin. You carry corruption in your veins." She struggled against her captors. "I was a child." Her voice broke. "You did this to me, you sold me like an animal." His gaze didn't waver. "You were born of a forbidden bond. The gods marked you the moment you drew breath. The flame in your blood is not a gift, it's the curse that destroyed your mother." Her throat tightened, pain rising from somewhere ancient and raw. "She loved you," she whispered. "You let them burn her for loving you." The crowd murmured. But her father lifted a hand, silencing them. "Love?" His laugh was bitter. "Love is weakness. It blinds the strong and breeds rebellion. Look around you, daughter. You think your pain is unique? Every wolf here has suffered for your existence." She turned toward the Alpha King, eyes wide, searching for the anchor she had found in him. But the council shifted, and the elder wolves stepped forward, their robes dragging through the blood-soaked sand. "Her presence threatens the balance," one of them intoned. "The silver flame cannot live. It will consume us all." "She is a child of prophecy," the Alpha King countered, his voice echoing across the amphitheater. "You speak of balance while you kneel before fear. She is the key to our survival, not our ruin." Her father's gaze snapped to him. "You defend her, then? You think yourself immune to her poison?" He didn't flinch. "I defend what's right." Her father smiled, a cruel, hollow thing. "Then let me enlighten you, King." The silence thickened, so dense that even the storm outside seemed to pause. "She was never meant to be your mate," her father said slowly, savoring each word. "She was meant to be your undoing." The words landed like blades. Her breath caught. The Alpha King froze, confusion flashing behind his eyes, then disbelief, then something worse, doubt. It was only a flicker, a single heartbeat of hesitation, but she saw it. And it destroyed her. Her body went cold. The trust they'd built in whispers and firelight shattered into dust. He looked at her, searching her face for truth, for denial, but her silence screamed louder than words. "Tell me," he said quietly. "Is it true?" She couldn't speak. The air had turned to glass in her lungs. And in that silence, her father moved. Ancient words rolled from his tongue, low and rhythmic. The ground beneath her feet pulsed with power. Silver light coiled around her ankles, winding up her legs, her waist, her arms. The chains were not of iron this time, they were woven from moonlight and blood. She screamed as they closed around her wrists, burning through skin, sinking into bone. The crowd stepped back as her wolf howled inside her chest, thrashing against the bindings. She fell to her knees, the sound of her agony tearing through the air. The Alpha King tried to reach her, but the council blocked his path. "Enough," one of them roared. "She is no longer one of us." The chains glowed brighter. Silver fire licked up her body, pain and fury merging into something primal. Her father's voice echoed. "This is the price of defiance. You should have remained in exile." Her vision blurred. She could barely see the king through the haze, but his expression had changed, no longer anger, no longer confusion, but helplessness. And that hurt most of all. Tears mingled with blood as she whispered, "I never asked for this." Her power surged. The chains tightened, then cracked. Light erupted from her chest, pure and violent, the raw echo of her wolf breaking halfway free. The sound of it shattered the air. The amphitheater lit in silver flame. Wolves screamed. Stone split. Torches extinguished. When the smoke cleared, she was gone. Vanished into the storm that waited beyond the walls. Only the echo of her howl remained, carried by the wind, half human, half divine, full of sorrow. And for the first time, the Alpha King realized the prophecy was not about her destroying him. It was about her destroying everything that bound her. The storm did not sleep. It raged over the ruins, tearing through banners, swallowing torches whole. The sky itself seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Far from the amphitheater, on the edge of the forest where the Roman stones bled into wild earth, she fell to her knees. Her breath came in broken gasps. Her skin glowed faintly, the last remnants of the chains searing against her flesh before vanishing into mist. She was free, yet she felt nothing but hollow. Her wolf stirred inside her, trembling, half awake. "You cannot run from what you are," the voice whispered. "You are the flame. You were never meant to be caged." She wanted to scream back, to curse the blood that made her, the prophecy that chained her life to ruin. But the truth pressed against her like a second heartbeat. This pain was not punishment. It was awakening. In the distance, horns blared again. The rival packs were uniting. They were coming, not for vengeance, not for capture, but to destroy her once and for all. The next night, under the dying moon, they found her. The marketplace where it had all begun stood empty and broken, Roman statues cracked and swallowed by vines. She was dragged to the same altar where her wrists had first bled. This time, she didn't resist. Chains of spell-forged silver pinned her to the stone. Above her, the elders gathered, chanting words that burned the stars themselves. The ritual began. They called it purification. But it was murder, wrapped in sacred robes. As her strength drained, she lifted her gaze to the heavens. The stars stared back, distant, indifferent. Her lips parted in a whisper. "If this is destiny, then let it see me." The torches flared. Power surged. And then, through the haze, she heard it. His voice. The Alpha King's roar shattered the night. He came alone. No army. No allies. Just fury and devotion woven into one unstoppable storm. "Stop." His voice ripped through the chants. "You're killing her." Her father turned, disbelief shadowing his face. "You defy the prophecy itself?" "I defy your fear," the king growled. "You speak of fate, but you forged your own chains." The elders raised their hands, summoning energy to strike him down, but he moved faster. Blades of moonlight clashed with the force of his will. The ground trembled. He called her name, not the cursed one the world had given her, but her true name. The one whispered to him in the dark, when she still believed in hope. The sound of it cracked the spell like glass. The chains melted into light. Her wolf screamed awake, not in pain, but in power. The fire burst from her chest, flooding the ruins with silver radiance. Her body lifted from the altar, hair whipping in the wind, eyes blazing with the fury of 1,000 moons. The Alpha King fell to his knees, not in defeat, but in reverence. Every pack member froze. Every elder trembled. Before them stood not the cursed child they condemned, but the goddess they feared to name. Flames spiraled from her body, not consuming but cleansing, wings of silver unfurling behind her like divine fire. The ground beneath her cracked, light erupting through ancient stone, spreading through the amphitheater, through the city, through the forest beyond. Her voice rang out, steady, strong, eternal. "I am not your sacrifice," she said, every word shaking the heavens. "I am your reckoning." The storm bowed to her. The flames obeyed her. Wolves fell to their knees, eyes lowered, not in fear, but in worship. The Alpha King looked up, eyes wide, heart breaking with awe. She descended slowly, the fire dimming to a soft, pulsing glow. Her bare feet touched the altar, no longer a place of torment, but of rebirth. He approached her, slowly, reverently. Their eyes met in silence. And for the first time, she didn't flinch. He lowered his head, not as a king before a goddess, but as a man before the only truth that ever mattered. "Then let them kneel," he whispered. "Because the flame is ours now." Above them, thunder rolled, deep, ancient, approving. And when the light finally faded, the world that had broken her began to burn again. This time, in her name. The battlefield lies silent now. The air trembles with what remains of her fire, ash drifting like silver snow, painting the ruins in the color of endings. Wolves kneel in silence, their heads bowed not from worship, but from something rawer, fear wrapped in awe. She stands at the center of it all, her bare feet sinking into charred earth, her silver flame retreating slowly beneath her skin as if hiding from the dawn. Her breath comes steady, but her heart still beats in chaos. The echoes of screams, the clash of claws, the betrayal of blood, they all hum beneath her ribs, reminding her what she's lost and what she's become. The Alpha King steps beside her, his once dark armor now cracked, blackened from flame and battle. His golden eyes find her, hesitant, reverent. He looks at her as if she is both salvation and ruin. "You've changed everything," he says. His voice is rough, heavy with exhaustion and something he refuses to name. She turns her gaze toward the horizon, where smoke curls into the paling sky. "No," she whispers. "The war is just beginning." Her hand drifts unconsciously toward the mark glowing faintly beneath her collarbone, the sigil of the moon, carved there by destiny, by bloodline, by every choice she never asked to make. It hums beneath her skin, not as a curse, but as a reminder that the flame within her isn't done burning. The wind rises, sweeping through the ruins, carrying whispers from the fallen temple and the ghosts that once guarded it. Among the whispers, one voice emerges, soft, echoing, almost human. "Would you have chosen her?" it asks, distant but intimate, or feared her too? She looks up as if hearing it from the stars. The Alpha King follows her gaze, but he cannot hear what she hears. The faintest tremor passes through her lips, a flicker of grief, a breath of strength, a secret between her and the moon. She takes one final look at the battlefield, the wolves kneeling, the ashes of her chains, the man who defied the world to stand beside her, and turns away. Every step she takes leaves a faint trail of light, vanishing with the wind. She doesn't look back. Because she knows, the moment she does, she will break. Will you choose her, or will you fear her too? If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Because here, every heart burns beneath the moon. Dawn breaks slowly over the ravaged plains. What was once a marketplace is now an ocean of ruin, stone melted into glass, banners turned to ash, blood soaked deep into the earth. The silver light has faded, leaving only the pale reminder of what once burned. Smoke curls into the morning sky, and in the distance, the temple bells ring for the first time in centuries, a sound both mournful and divine. Beneath what remains of the Roman archway, the Alpha King kneels among the ruins. His hand rests where she last stood, fingers brushing the faint warmth still lingering in the soil. His eyes are dimmer now, not from loss, but from realization. He has seen power take form, love meet prophecy, and faith bend to fire. He whispers her name once. The sound dissolves into the morning wind. From the shadows behind him, movement stirs. An old seer emerges, her cloak stitched from centuries of silence, her eyes pale as winter fog. She walks through the debris with the patience of one who has seen too much and learned too little. She stops beside him, her voice breaking the stillness. "The silver flame has risen," she murmurs, almost to herself. But she is not the only one. He lifts his gaze, tension rippling beneath his calm. What do you mean? The seer does not answer. Her hand rises slowly, pointing toward the far horizon where the mountains cut the sky in half. The first light of dawn hits the peak, and there, for a brief second, something glows. A faint mark, gold instead of silver. Not a reflection, not a trick of light. Another sigil. Another flame. Her lips curl in a knowing smile. Balance demands its twin, she whispers. The world will always need its shadow. The Alpha King rises, fists tightening. The mark on his wrist, the one he's hidden all his life, begins to pulse faintly in response. He looks toward the mountain, toward that glimmering light in the distance. Somewhere beyond the veil of mist, another story begins. Cut to a distant peak. The wind howls against stone, carrying the faint scent of iron and rain. A lone figure stands at the cliff's edge, tall, cloaked, silent. The sun's first rays crawl across his back, revealing a mark glowing just beneath the skin of his neck, golden, burning, alive. His eyes open. Golden. Predatory. Familiar. And in that gaze, hunger, not for blood, but for what was lost. He whispers into the wind, the words fractured but clear. She is awake. The mountain trembles as if answering him. Wolves howl from the valleys below, their voices rising in a chorus of warning and longing. The air tightens, the world holding its breath for what comes next. Then, darkness. A single heartbeat pulses through the void. And a whisper, low and ominous, threads through it all. This isn't over. The sound fades entirely now. Only the echoes remain, soft, haunting, unforgettable. The moon glows faintly on the horizon, casting her silver light one last time across the battlefield, across the mountain, across the shadows of two wolves fated to meet again. The music swells, strings trembling like breath caught between hope and dread. Then the final note breaks like glass. Silence. Subscribe now. The next moon rises sooner than you think.